Hey, welcome back. Yesterday, we talked about receiving feedback. So let's talk about giving feedback today. I'm Keith.
And I'm Rodney, and this is the Dad Chronicle. This here is the place where Keith and I just, wax poetic. We get on soapboxes. We talk about things that are relevant to us, maybe to you, who knows. But the idea is to leave some notes for our daughters, for our future selves, and to build some community with you. So today we're going to talk about giving feedback. We talked and minorly debated the idea of receiving feedback, and I think there's probably still stuff to talk about there, but let's switch and talk a little bit about giving feedback. So where do you want to start on this?
I think there is a component of there's the when, where, there's the W's, the when, the why, and the I guess how is not a W. And there's the W in it, but there's the when, why, and how, right? So I think let's focus on the when. The when you give feedback. Um, I I would argue there are certainly structural reasons and times to give feedback, right? To provide feedback, in that it's a business review, it's a manager review, it's whatever the case may be. However, I would argue culturally, we have the tendency to give more than we receive when it comes to feedback. And the question is when. When would you argue is the best time to give feedback?
I think it can be summed up very neatly with what we got from Tristan. Is it kind? Is it necessary? And is it true? I think if you can answer those three questions, yes, you give feedback. If you can't, then I think you need to either amend one of the things or wait.
And I think that speaks to the absolute when. I think when is when it's also ties into the
necessary.
why. It's when it's necessary. Yeah.
Yeah.
When it directly impacts you or the people around you.
Or business or safety or
That's right.
whatever.
Whatever the impact is beyond you. And it's not an impact on your ego. And this is the why. This ties into the why. Um, it's not an impact on what makes me feel good. Historically speaking, we have the tendency to tell people how they should be based
Hmm.
on the impact of their being on your personal feelings. And I have a real life example now. I've been actually thinking about this a lot lately. So this is not an opportunity to give you feedback. It's simply an opportunity to state an impact on me that is simply tied to my personal feelings. I have realized I don't like cussing. It's not that I don't like doing it. I don't like an influx of it.
Which
You know,
this is not new for me.
right, right. And lately, you've been cussing a lot more than normal because you got a lot of things going on, and it's just part of your vernacular and your ecosystem on a regular basis that I'm not necessarily a part of, and it bothers me. Not that you're cussing, but the cussing itself.
Yeah.
And so what I've been thinking about, I'm like, okay, I've been thinking about it. I'm like, there was a time where I would probably say to Rodney, your cussing's bothering me. Do you mind stopping?
Mm.
And what I've come to realize, like, giving you that feedback means nothing to us, right? Like, it's not affecting our relationship. It's not affecting our business. It's not affecting anything that we're doing other than my own feelings. So, in that, does it make you, do you have to be a different person because my feelings about cussing? And thus, the why of giving feedback in that case is simply to say, I want to quell my own issues
And I would flip and
versus
then
dealing with them and just managing it as my own personal
and
preference.
and then what you ended up doing when we talked about it, and I think the way that you flip it based on is it necessary, is it true, specifically is it
Right.
true?
Right.
The truth in this case is that cussing affects you.
That's
So
it. That's right.
flipping this to say, just so you know, cussing bothers me. Not your cussing, like
Yeah.
everybody's cussing,
Yeah.
period. Even when
Yeah.
I do it, it bothers me.
Yeah.
And that just flips the lens to be like, this is the truth of the situation, and you can share that because if it's necessary, maybe it just came up. Maybe I just cussed in a video we just did, and then how you deliver it would be the kind part, but we can get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But that, I think that flips because it just changes the onus of the conversation. It changes the reality of the conversation when you burden somebody else with your feelings.
Right. Because now I'm not, like, there is a difference, because
Then it's a
in that
critique
case,
that's like,
yeah, because then in that case, it's not feedback, right? It's an expression of impact on me.
yeah.
Whereas
Well, then
if you
it's
were
just a straight critique. Like, I didn't like
that's
that
right.
movie. Okay,
That's
I
right.
liked it.
It's like
Like,
but it's a critique on cussing. It's not a feedback on you, right?
right.
Versus me saying, "Hey, Rodney, I think you cuss too much, and I think you should stop cussing." Like, there is not. Sure, it's true. I think that there's, but is that true? Because the idea of cussing too much is very subjective, right?
Yeah,
Some
but I mean, you could
people,
apply it to, oh, this is
yeah,
affecting customers are saying that
yeah.
it's affecting a relationship with you, or it's gonna affect your children, or you like there could be direct conversations
That's
where,
right. If in the working, like, if we had this conversation when we first brought interns on, and we had the conversation, like, do we know if they're okay with it,
right,
right? But that was a direct feedback and it was an open, honest conversation, because it was necessary to make sure
yeah,
that we're managing our culture, not necessarily just, willy nilly being ourselves. So I think there's the point in saying that is the why matters as it relates to the external, not just your judgment of somebody else. Like, to
hmm
just say you are this, therefore I need to give you feedback that that's wrong because I am not, that is probably not the best way to deliver feedback.
and I think the why isn't necessary. Like, what's the outcome? What is the
Right.
reason that you're giving feedback? Is it,
Right.
and I think two main things. One, and I'm like, yeah, this is feedback, like a system. I can share how I feel about a thing
Right.
because we're sharing a space, we're having a conversation, we are working on a thing. I'm just sharing, just so you understand. Now, what you do with that is up to you, and
Right.
we can talk about that based on how I feel. Now, if there's something that you're doing that I think is detrimental to any of the
X,
number
Y,
of
or
things that
Z.
we've already
Yeah.
mentioned, it's like that would make it necessary for me to share feedback about you
That's
from
right.
my perspective. Now,
Right.
there may be more objective things, like in a sales culture where we're tracking quotas, or we're tracking calls, or we're tracking something discrete.
Yep.
Like, that's a much easier thing to give feedback on. Like, hey, you said you would make 80 calls, you made 40. Let's talk about that gap.
That's right. And then it leads to the how, and to be kind, right? I think this goes to what you were saying yesterday around receiving feedback. It is much easier to receive feedback when it's delivered in kindness, right? And using the cussing. If I was just like, Rodney, dude, you've got to stop cussing. Like, I can't handle it anymore. And you're being a jerk, and I can't stand you, and this has to stop. Versus, so Rodney, on that sales call, you kind of cussed, 15 times in front of the prospective client, and we have no idea what their relationship with cussing is. So maybe we want to dial it back for the next one, and we might have lost that client, right? Like, there's different level of providing feedback, right?
Yeah, nah, I would agree with that. Is it kind? Yeah, not only the words, the tone, probably
Yes,
more than the words, the tone.
that's right. Totally, I
If
would
you're
agree.
not in a space, if you're not in a head space to be able to deliver what you're saying clearly, I think this is important, clearly, and with like understanding your intent, like your reason for sharing it, because you're hot, you're emotional, you're whatever it is, then that might not be the right space. You may not be able to deliver that kindness, even though it's like, yeah, I'm gonna be kind, but you're mad, and it's gonna be tough. Sometimes you got to give yourself a little space there. But yeah, I think this is one we
Yeah,
could talk about a lot more.
a lot more. So the question I have is, do you, as an
Should we
audience,
wait? Should we ask a question, or should we just give them feedback? Like, Bob, your hair right now, I don't think
is this not
that's
working?
it's not the
David,
look.
tone it down a little bit. Your energy level is
Susan,
really making people uncomfortable.
Susan, that color, I don't.
Kristen, please stop sounding so angry. Seriously, do you when you give feedback, do you think about intentionally, and I'm not just talking about corporate feedback when you're in a review, I'm talking about on a regular basis, intentionally understanding the why that you are giving that feedback? And how do you make that distinction?
Have a great day. Make it an amazing day.
Make it an amazing
receive
day.
the best
I
feedback you've ever given.
I got off to a bad start today, but this makes me feel much better. I'm not gonna lie.
This helps me get past it. Right?
Yep.